So we're going to start day 2 of lesson 1 in chapter 2's notes. So here was the end of lesson 1, day 1. So right underneath it, you should have day 2. So remember from chapter 1, if you have the word from on a number line, you're going to have the 2 dots that would include the numbers on the end. And if it says between, it would not include those. So here we have a vertical number line. If you have positive numbers, those would be on the top side or above 0 on the number line. So everything here in pink. So you can see I've numbered 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with equal spacing. Again, anything between 0 and 1 would be a fraction or a decimal. And then I could have numbers between 1 and 2 that were fractions or decimals. They technically would be mixed numbers. And then everything below 0 would be negative numbers. So 0 and then -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Just like yesterday, if we have +1, the distance is 1 away from 0. And then its opposite is -1, which is the same distance away from 0, which is 1 jump. So you can see if you draw a line, that's 1 away from 0, and this one's 1 jump away from 0. If I went all the way to 5, from 0, it's 1 jump, 2 jumps, 3, 4, 5 jumps. Just like +5 is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 jumps away. Okay, so I can draw my negative and positive number lines off of that neutral point of 0. 0 is neither positive nor negative. Okay, so if I was going to draw another negative number line, okay, and I said it's going to be negative numbers between 0 and -10, but only even numbers. And remember I said between, and I said negative numbers. And then I also said even. So between, negative, and even. So then I need to go through and number them. So this would be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. Lots of times if you put your ending number here, you'll end up with not even spacing. So I would say don't put your ending number there. Number all the way down and put your ending number wherever it happens to stop. If you've been doing it for a long time, you can happen to space it out pretty close to where it will end up even with equal spacing. But if you're having trouble with that, just remember you can leave off that ending point and then you can equally space it out. So I'm doing between 0 and 10, all the negative numbers that are even. So 0 is not negative. It's neither negative nor positive, so I'm not going to dot that. Plus it said between. So 0 is not between 0 and -10. And then I'm going to do -1 is not even. So I'm not going to do -1, -3, -5, -7, nor -9. I'm not going to do 0, and I'm not going to do -10 because those are not between. So then I'm going to check, is -2 even? Yes. Is -4? Is -6? And is -8? So those are my ones that are left. So I'm going to dot those because they're all even and they're all between 0 and -10. I'm checking I left my arrows on the ends of the number line to make sure that they are showing that my number line goes on and on forever. Okay. The next thing we're going to learn is statements of inequality. So remember, that's just writing essentially number sentences with the greater than or less than symbol. So if I had this number sentence here comparing 5 and -13, so just remember that anytime you have a positive number comparing it to a negative number, the positive number will always be greater than the negative number. And that's because of our number line. The positive numbers are always above the negative numbers on the number line. So I can say that 5 is greater than -13. And then if I look at this one, if I have -13 compared to -14, if I look at my negative numbers, the greater technically, if I'm thinking positive numbers, so like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, I'm thinking if it's positive is greater than 4. But really when they're negative, negative 5 is less than negative 4 because it's lower on my number line. So remember, the further down it is on the number line, when it's vertical, the lesser it is. So negative 14 would be below negative 13 on my vertical number line. If it was horizontal, negative 14 would be to the left of negative 13. And remember, if it's to the left on a horizontal number line, it's lesser than the number before it. So that means that negative 13 is greater than negative 14, or I could say negative 14 is less than negative 13. Another way you can think of it is 13. So negative 13 is 13 away from 0. It's 13 jumps to get to 0. Whereas 14 is 14 jumps to get to 0. So negative 14 is further away or farther negative from 0. But if I had a positive 13 and a positive 14, you've learned that the positive 14 is greater. And that's because it's higher on the number line than the 13. So remember, on the vertical number line, the higher it is, the greater the number. So just remember, if it's positive, it's always going to be greater than a negative number. So the opposite of that's true as well. If it's negative, it's always less than a positive number. If it looks like a bigger negative number, technically the 14 is less than a 13 if they're both negative. And then a positive number, if they're both positive, it's just like you've always learned, the 13 would be less than the 14. So those are vertical number lines and writing inequalities with positive and negative numbers.